All right, I hope everybody had a good break. Our next speaker is Sebastian Vieira from the Corporación SalvaMontes in Colombia. Sebastian is a naturalist and engineer who grew up surrounded by orchids and has been exploring the mountains of Colombia with his father and friends to see and photograph orchids in nature. He has discovered and described a number of new orchid species, and in 2016 joined a group of conservation-oriented people to establish SalvaMontes, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the conservation of nature and biodiversity. Currently, SalvaMontes protects 1,300 acres of cloud forest in a highly biodiverse hotspot in the northern tropical Andes, where several locally endemic and threatened orchids are protected. Sebastian is the executive director of this organization and also a member of the Colombian plant specialist and orchid specialist groups of the IUCN.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with you and being able to share this with you. Thank you to the Orchid Conservation Alliance for the invitation. So I'm going to talk about our orchid conservation initiatives in the Alto de Ventanas, which is a place that I will explain later in the presentation. So our agenda today is to first, I'll give a short introduction about the problem and the solutions that we are working on here, the current state of the art on orchids and their conservation in Colombia and in our area, our orchid conservation initiative, and I will, at the end, explain how you can become a part of it. So, to give a short introduction about me, I was mostly born amongst orchids because my father and mother grew orchids in my house, and they have had several greenhouses. So I went with them to orchid shows and to the forest looking for orchids. And I was really lucky because I had the opportunity to go to the forest with people like Rodrigo Escobar and Juan Felipe Posada. So I had this close contact with orchids and orchid botany since I was really young. So I grew with orchids, but I also saw how the forests in Colombia were being destroyed over time. And I was always worried about that. I have been willing to work with orchid conservation for many years. And finally, when SalvaMontes was created in 2016, I had this opportunity to become a part of organization doing conservation. So that's why today I am part of this organization and with the privilege of being the director of this corporation. So particularly here in Colombia, we are in a department called Antioquia, which is in the northern western part. You see it with the 5 number here. And so in Antioquia, we have the highest deforestation rate on the 4th department in Colombia with a higher deforestation rate, and also some of the highest biodiversity. So we are losing a lot of habitat for orchids and many other species continually, and that is increasing every year. So this is like a very challenging situation that we want to work on with habitat conservation. So as you can see here, just in between 2020 and 2021, more than 12,000 hectares of forests were destroyed. So the first part of the solution, and maybe the most important one, is to protect the habitat. And that's what we are working on here. So currently we are protecting approximately 1,300 acres of forests in the north of the Andes in Colombia. So let's see a little about what is the situation in Colombia and particularly in our area. In the world, as Lou explained and Tom also did, there are some regions that are very important for biodiversity, and the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund defined some criteria for what is considered the biodiversity hotspots of the world. And those hotspots has this requirement that they must be a place with over 1,500 endemic plant species, and they also have to suffer more than 70% natural habitat loss. So in this case, we are located in the tropical Andes hotspot, which is what you see here as a red area. Is the Andes is the longest cordillera in the world, and the tropical part of it is one of the highest biodiverse area in the whole world too. It has elevations from sea level up to more than 6,000 meters with snow peaks in some mountains. And it also has more than 35,000 species, with half of them endemic to this region only and nowhere else in the world. So going closer, in the Antioquia department, which I showed you before, you can see it like green area here. Antioquia is at the northern tip of the tropical Andes hotspot. And this is where we are located. You see that green spot in the middle of the map is where we are working right now. So this is an area called the Alto de Ventanas. The Alto de Ventanas was declared by the local government as a biodiverse important area. It's also included in the list of protected areas of the country, but there is no special management from the government here. They only dictate that some restrictions that are applied to the landowners about how they can use their land, but it's not easy to enforce those. So it is required to do some more efforts on protecting these forests. So here in this particular area, we are between 900 and 2,400 meters of elevation. The whole area is approximately 23,000 hectares. And we have these flora species numbers that you see here are very preliminary because this area is also very understudied. So far, we know that at least 15% of the flora here is endemic to this particular area, nowhere else in Colombia or the world. And 43 of those species have already been assessed and declared as threatened under the global red lists. There is a very high plant diversification rate, and the number of endemic species is really high. And one of the reasons causing this situation is because in Colombia, in the north of Colombia, the Andes is split into 3 branches with 2 rivers flowing to the Caribbean from the south, the Cauca and the Magdalena. And where we are located, we have biodiverse that comes from both sides. Yeah, we have influence from the Central America, as you see on the map, but also from the Chocó on the Pacific side of Colombia, and also from the eastern side and the Magdalena Valley. So at these particular places, we find a mixture of species from very different places, and also a lot of, as I said before, a lot of species that are also endemic to this particular area. So now speaking about the orchids in Colombia. In Colombia, the studies as for the latest numbers that we have are from a publication made in 2015. We have 3,288 species in the country, with 37% of them being endemic to Colombia. But also 77% of those species are located on the Andes. That's where we are located too. And as Lou explained before, the Andes, the tropical Andes, is one of the more diverse places, not only for plants, but also for many other groups of animals and plants. So 78% of the orchid species in Colombia are from the Andes, of the endemics. And in Antioquia, and in the green area that you see there where we are working, we have identified so far that 40% of the orchid species are endemic. And sorry, I got confused with this slide. Let's continue here. So in the area we are working, yeah, we have so far identified 178 orchid species. 9 new orchid species that we have detected in the last 5 years. Some of them are still on the work for publication. And we have a high local orchid endemism. And also we identified that this is a hotspot for the Lepanthes genus, with more than 30 species in the area. And that is, in Colombia, we have around 330 Lepanthes species. So what we have identified here is that in this area, we have approximately 12% of all the Lepanthes species known for Colombia. Here we can see some of the endemic species that are on this area, like Lepanthes culex, so the Lepanthes briseñoensis, which is named after one of the towns in the region. This beautiful telepogon, which haven't been seen for many years, and we were able to find recently during an expedition. And also Lepanthes alcicornis and deficiens, which can be found only on these forests. This magnificent and very beautiful Sibekingia filifera. When I sent this photo to Gunther Gerlach for identification, he was really excited because it seemed that no one has seen this species in the forest for a long time, only in cultivation. So knowing where it's growing now and that it is in a protected area is really exciting for us. Some other interesting species in the area is like, and to the right was the Valle macrogenia, which is also known only from this area and other spots near the Pacific coast. And this beautiful PLEUROTHALLID, which is an undescribed species related with Lepanthes diabolica, PLEUROTHALLID diabolica, and also Lepanthes reticulata and Lepanthes felis. On the lower, with lower elevations with warmer weather, we have some other beautiful orchids that are amazing to see in the wild, like Stanhopeia platyceras and Polycygnis grandiflora, which was considered to exist only in Central America, what was recently found here also in Colombia. And for the conservation of the orchids in Colombia, we have these 2 works, which were published in 2006, the Red Book for the Plants of Colombia, Volume 6, which is dedicated to the orchids. And then a plan for the study and conservation of the Colombian orchids, which was published in 2015. And it lists a lot of the species that are found in Colombia and establishes a plan and actions for the conservation of this group of plants in the country from the government side. So this is like a guide for the conservation in the country when you are working with orchids. And talking about nature reserves or orchid reserve initiatives that are currently active in the country, we have the Las Orquídeas National Park is the oldest and the biggest one, which is a national park funded by the government, also in Antioquia. We have different nature preserves around the country that have orchids as part of the conservation objectives, like La Palma, which Marta Kolanowska will speak about later, Reserva Orquídeas, which was funded by the Colombian Orchid Society in Jardín, also here in the department of Antioquia, our reserves in El Alto de Ventanas. And we also have some Reserva Biológica Encenillo near Bogota, which was not funded focused on orchids, but orchids became an important part of their work because they have a lot of orchids there. And we also have some community nurseries in Puerto Nidia and Florencia Caquetá, where the local communities have established nurseries with local orchids for the tourists that visit the area, so they can get some income from the visitors that go there and visit the orchidariums. Now about our orchid conservation initiative in the Alto Ventanas. SalvaMontes' mission is to protect nature at the north end of the tropical Andes hotspot. We are working mostly in the northern part of the Andes in Antioquia, but we might expand to other parts of Colombia, also in the Andes, with our vision to conserve nature for the long-term benefit of all the forms of life on Earth. And our main focus on conservation is through habitat conservation, which is, I think, is the most important part of, or the best way to protect species for the future, protecting their habitat, but it has to be complemented with other actions that complement it and enforce the habitat conservation. So there is a short video that I want to show you right now. I will stop sharing for a second and go back with the video on the screen. So do you see the screen now?
We are SalvaMontes, a non-profit organization dedicated to nature conservation for the long-term benefit of all forms of life in the northwest of the tropical Andes hotspot in Colombia. Currently, we are preserving 3 fragments of forest located at El Alto de Ventanas in the municipality of Yarumal. Our goal is to connect these 3 fragments into one extraordinary biodiverse ecological corridor full of many water sources, amazing crystal clear waterfalls, spectacular cloud forests, and pristine habitats that are home to unique threatened species like the magnificent Ventanas magnolia tree, the rare Handley's slender possum, or the gorgeous ghost monkey orchid, among many other amazing rare species that make up the world-famous biodiversity of the Colombian Andes. Make a difference. Get involved and support our projects by helping with creating the Alto de Ventanas ecological corridor through the expansion of our natural reserves, developing threatened species conservation initiatives, and building the Northern Tropical Andes Research Center that will allow us to discover more about this special, unique part of nature. Help us create a world where the life of the forest is safe and thrives. The time to act together is now. Here is how you can join us.
When I was a student, I'd write long essays that I'd work on for days, but now
Sorry for that. Okay, is my screen back there? Thank you.
yes.
Okay, so our habitat protection initiative is, our dream is in the future to build an ecological corridor, like the video said. And the corridor is the orange area in this map. And the green areas are the areas that we are currently protecting. but we have three natural reserves that we have been able to buy with the help of from the Orchid Conservation Alliance and the Rainforest Trust. The first one was the one on the upper left, La Selva de Ventanas, which is 94 hectares in area. Then La Esperanza, which Steve Beckendorf visited with us several years ago, and Nicolas, who is also here. It's a higher elevation area with 50 hectares where we have been able to discover different orchid new species. And then Los Magnolios Reserve to the right, which is the biggest area now with 384 hectares. This is an area that where 3 threatened magnolia species grow, one of them with only 50 adult trees left in the whole world that we are trying to protect. But it's also an area with a lot of endemic and a lot of diversity in orchids, as I said before. And we have identified the land properties where the biggest patches of forest exist. So that's how we selected the area for the future corridor. And it's not that we plan to buy all those land. We are also working with some of the neighbors who are interested in protecting their land, and they will be included in the conservation initiative and be part of the corridor in the future. We have some threatened orchid species that grow in our nature reserves, like the Phragmipedium slimi, which is listed in the red list as an endangered species. Lepanthes golondrina was also recently listed as an endangered species. This species was discovered in 1974, described in 1975, but haven't seen again since the discovery. And we were able to find it while scouting some of the natural reserves that we have. And were able to reassess this species, the status of conservation of the species, and submit it to the IUCN. So it is now listed in the web, on the red list as endangered, and Dracula lemurella as a critically endangered species. That this is a Dracula that was also discovered in 1974 and has not been seen again until we found this inside the natural reserve. So as far as we know today, the only living populations in nature for this species are inside the Los Magnolios Natural Reserve. So with help from the San Diego County Orchid Society, we are working on assessing the population of this species in the natural reserve. We have been able to find 2 new phorophytes, 2 new trees where the species is growing, because as some of you might know, Draculas usually don't grow around all the forest, but they are concentrated on specific trees. And you can find one tree with several plants in the forest and no more plants for a long time until you find another tree several meters away. So during this project, we have been able to find 2 new phorophytes. So now we know 6 trees in the reserve with plants of this species. And we have been also able to assess 262 plants. We are measuring them. We know how many leaves they have, how long the leaves are, if they are producing inflorescences, if they have fruits, and if they are producing flowers. So the intention is in the future that we can continue to monitor if they are growing or they are decreasing or disappearing or reproducing, and we can know the dynamics of the population. And from that knowledge, we can design better conservation actions for the species in the natural reserve. During this expedition, we were also able to observe the pollination removal event of the orchid by this Drosophila fly. This was really exciting. There was like this moment of the day where the sun rays hit the flowers, and a lot of activity was going there. The flies were moving really fast and excited. And one of the flies landed on the lip of the flower. And I was able with my camera to photograph the moment when the fly got out with the pollen stick to its back. We are also making documentation of the species with the Lancaster composite digital plates, as you see here. And this then become part of our publication that we are publishing periodically, that is the species Orchidacearum. You can search on the internet for species Orchidacearum, and there are currently 4 volumes which have been published, and you can download them from that website. Also, we have found some new species that were recently described as these 3 species that you can see here, which were also auctioned. The names of these species were auctioned with the help of the Rainforest Trust. So we were able to get some good donations for the expansion of the natural reserve. And those who got the names were able to decide the name that we published when the species were published. And the last one that we found in the Los Magnolios Reserve is this Lepanthes gloria, which was dedicated to the late mother of one of our friends. A new topic that we are starting to understand in the reserve is that there is a REOPHYTE habitat in the rocks that surround the waterfalls and the streams, where different plants grow there and can only grow in this type of habitat. And we have found so far that Framipedium schlemi grows as a REOPHYTE, and also this Trisetella, together with another Lepanthes. But what is very interesting is that this is a habitat that is very restricted in its distribution, and also has a lot of different family plants growing there that can withstand when the heavy rains come and the water level comes really high. The streams go over all this vegetation, but they have very strong roots attached to the rocks and can survive there and thrive there. And this is the only habitat where they can grow. So it's very interesting. And we are starting to study and work on this kind of habitat. And particularly, we have found so far like 5 or 6 species of orchids that can only grow in this type of habitat. Other threatened species that we are protecting in the natural reserve are the hand-laced slender possum. Magnolia polypsophylla is the tree I said before that only 50 adult trees remain in the world. We are working on harvesting the seeds, propagating it, and planting new trees in the forest. And other endangered species like Pristimantis lemur, this beautiful flower you can see there, and the Banksia melanoclamis, which is also endemic to Colombia. Another of the projects that we are working right now with the help of the Orchid Conservation Alliance, and in this case also from some funds that were left from the PLEUROTHALLID Alliance when it was finished, when it closed, they left some funds that were then donated to us. And this is how we are now going to build this is the first phase of the Tropical Andes Research Station. So we're going to build a small research cabin with a capacity for 10 people near a road that crosses the reserve, so that we can have a place where researchers or visitors can go, but it's easily accessible. It's close to the road and also close to some of the best habitats in the reserve. We also have the tree propagation greenhouse where we are propagating native trees and the magnolia trees. With these 2 neighbor community campesinos that were previously burning the forest for selling coal as their only income. Now we have hired them, and They are now currently working for SalvaMontes, and they are reforesting the forests and growing trees, and they are also learning a lot about orchids and about the magnolia trees, and are helping a lot with our conservation work. So how can you become a part of our initiative and help us? You can support our forest ranger salaries and also the management. We can receive donations through the Orchid Conservation Alliance. And you can also support the expansion of the Los Magnolios Nature Reserve. One of the lands that we want to add to the Los Magnolios is also the biggest patch of pristine forest that remains in our area, and it's now a very good opportunity for us to buy this land, and we will add 246 hectares to the reserve. This is the one you see with the blue shade in the middle of the image. And here is an aerial photo of that same parcel, El Castillo. As you can see, it's 100% covered with pristine forests. So we are now with a fundraising campaign with This Is My Earth Time, that you can go there, you can visit that website and vote for the project, and also donate. Donations start from $1. And the idea is that the project will be on the website during a whole year, and at the end, if we get all the most of the votes, we can get all the funds. We have also these certificates for tree planting that you can buy, and we have the Magnolia certificate, where we get one of the magnolia trees that we have propagated in our greenhouse and plant it in your name, or the cheaper with the other native trees which are not threatened, that is $30. So thank you. This is all from my side, but I'm open to any questions that you want to ask.
Thank you, Sebastian. That was very informative. I would ask the audience to please type questions you might have into the chat box. Let me see what questions we have here. So, well, one was a comment from Tom Givnish, who asked if any US TV station could be persuaded to run your video a few times as a public service announcement. Is it run on your Colombia TV? I'm just, perhaps that would be a route as well.
So far, we only have it in the YouTube channel, but I think that's a great idea. If we can work on getting that, I think it will help a lot.
And there was a question about the website to download the volumes. Ron Kaufman put it up in the chat box with the website.
Yeah,
I just looked at it. It's very nice. Looks great. So when are you breaking ground on the research cabin? I think it was really exciting that we got funding for that. So.
Yeah, I really want to thank the Orchid Conservation Alliance. Your help has been really great for us, and we are also looking forward in the future to organize some tours that will visit the new research house.
We are too. We all want to get back into the forest and end this pandemic.
You're welcome to come. It's really safe now.
Okay, Sarah Forsyth asks, how long has the SalvaMontes project been running? When did you start?
Hi, Sarah. It's nice to see you here. We started in 2016 in February, so we have been running for 6 years now.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Ron, can I turn it back over to you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian. And if people have questions that occur to them after this, please feel free to reach out directly to Sebastian. Again, you can contact them through the SalvaMontes website. So why don't we take our, I guess this will be our next to last break for about another 5 minutes. And when we come back, I will introduce Marta and we'll hear a little bit about La Palma.